Jesus answered and said unto her, whosoever drinketh of this water shall thirst again. And then verse number 23, but the hour cometh, and now is, that the true worshipers shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth, for the Lord seeketh such to worship him. I think he's very pleased today with what is going on in this place. Exodus chapter 4 and verse number 10, and Moses said unto him, Lord, O my Lord, I am not equipped, neither hitherto nor since thou hast spoken unto thy servant, but I am slow of speech and of slow tongue. And what Moses is really saying is, God, you've got the wrong guy. You just don't have the right guy. Judges chapter 6 and verse number 15, and he said unto him, O my Lord, wherewith shall I save Israel? Behold, my father is the poorest of Manasseh, and I am the least in my father's house. And what he was saying is, God, you've got the wrong man. Thank God. And then Luke chapter 5 and verse number 8, then Simon Peter answered and said and fell down at Jesus' feet, saying, depart from me, for I am a sinful man, O Lord. And what he was basically saying is, God, you've got the wrong man. But when God shows up, something happens. Thank God. Thank God. God, when you show up, something happens. Let's give the Lord a hand clap of praise, and you can be seated in Jesus' name. Thank God. Thank God. God bless you. You can be seated, and I'm going to have to hide my notes from Brother Brian. He always gets up here and starts preaching them. I think he's looking over there seeing what's on my notes. But I believe we're on the same page, because the Lord has showed up today, and he wants something to happen. Thank God. Notice the answer of all these men was, oh, my Lord, not me. Thank God. When you look at the people that the Lord used, you have to shake your head and just wonder, why did God choose Moses? Why did God choose Peter? And why did God choose Gideon of all people? When you look at their resume, when you look at their potential, thank God, it seemed that all of them same mentality, and that was that, God, you've got the wrong man. When you listen to their excuses, you have to kind of agree with them. I think they're right. We really need to get somebody else, because it's clear they were all totally unequipped to become what God ultimately made them into. And the moral of that story is you don't know what God can do if you'll just give him a chance to do it. Thank God. Moses said he stuttered, and God said unto him wanted him to be the spokesman, the lawgiver, and the great leader of Israel. And besides that, he was 80 years old. He was a shepherd on the backside of the desert. He was a nobody going nowhere. But I have to believe that God was seeking for the right man. God was looking for something about these men that you couldn't see on the surface. You couldn't understand why God would even take the time to speak to them. But there was something in their heart that God saw that nobody else could see, that they didn't even see in themselves. And I believe it was so possible today, as God is seeking in this place. As a matter of fact, you're here today because God is seeking to do something more in your life. I believe that where there is a hunger for God, though we may not even realize at the time that that's what's crying out inside of us, that longing that is there, it is a longing for God. There was something in these hearts that God could see. And it is like so many of us in our world today that are hungry for God, and they are looking for God, and they feel a desire for God, but they really just don't know where to go. People want to connect with a higher power. They are looking for something that only God can give them, that only God can do. And their hunger drives them sometimes to seek in all the wrong places. But today you've showed up at the right place, where that longing, that yearning in your soul could really be satisfied. Even though they argued with God, and they knew that he had the wrong man, something happened when God showed up. And some of you today, you need to understand that maybe you don't think you can do it. Maybe you don't think you can make it in God's kingdom. Maybe you don't see how God can use you. But I'm telling you, when God shows up, something happens. God did all kind of things to show Moses, you are the guy that I want. You are the man that I want to use. And the Lord said unto him, who has made a man's mouth, and who has made the dumb or the deaf, and to seeking, or the seeing or the blind? Have not I the Lord? And God was saying, look, I can make people speak. I can make anything happen. You don't have to worry. You're the man. And God, and now therefore go, and I will be with your mouth and teach them what thou shalt say. And Moses still said, no way, God, I can't do it. Verse number 13, and he said, O Lord, send, I pray thee, by the hand of him whom thou wilt send. You send somebody else, but I'm just not the man. Thank God. But God would not give up. Thank God. And God wouldn't give up on him. And finally, verse number 14 says, and the anger of the Lord was kindled against Moses. And he said, it's not Aaron thy Levite, thy brother. I know that he can speak well. And I also, behold, he cometh forth to meet thee. And when he seeth thee, he will be glad in heart. And God finally said, look, okay, you're the right man. Thank God, I'm mad at you, but I'm going to still use you in spite of all of your reservations. And ultimately, you know the story. Aaron didn't speak for Moses very long. It wasn't long until Moses stepped to the front and began to do what God called him to do. But the truth of the matter is that when God shows up, something happens. Thank God. You don't have to be able to make it happen. You just need to accept that God is here. And so whatever you want to do, Lord, I surrender to you. Thank God. When Israel needed a deliverer later on, and Gideon, God began to deal with Gideon. God began to seek for the right man. And it's amazing how that God chooses his people. He never chooses whom it would seem obvious to choose. God always chooses the most unlikely, the most unexpected one to be the one that God uses. And so he was looking for everything that was wrong and saying, God, look, I'm the wrong guy. I can't do it. I'm poor. I'm not a leader. I'm the least. And it took God a while to convince Gideon that he was the man to step up to the plate and lead the people of God. But the real story is in the next chapter after that God showed up. The Bible says that he started out, with 32,000 men, 22,000 went home, got down to 10,000. 10,000 couldn't pass the test. Ultimately, with 300 men, he conquered and defeated a mighty army because he was the right man. When Jesus shows up, thank God, something good happened. That day that Peter was cleaning his nets, and Jesus showed up and said, can I use your boat as a platform to preach from? And Peter said, no problem, glad for you to use it. Jesus preached, and when he got through preaching, he said, Peter, I'd like to do some fishing. I'd like for us to launch out in the deep. Peter said, look, it's not a good time to fish. We don't catch any fish. We didn't catch any fish last night. Sure not going to catch any fish today. You're a carpenter. I'm a fisherman. And but he said, if you want to do it, thank God. What's the big deal? We'll do it. Thank God. But when they caught that catch of fish, thank God, and they started back to shore, thank God, Peter realized that, hey, I'm in the presence of somebody that I don't need to be in the presence of. I'm a sinner. I'm a bad guy. This guy is so holy and righteous. He fell down at Jesus' feet and said, Lord, you need to move on. I'm a bad guy. You don't want to have company with me. You don't want my reputation going with you. But you know the story. Thank God. Jesus said, no, you're the right guy. Thank God. You're the right one. And then Peter said, I can't do it. But God was saying, you're the right prelate. He had all kind of problems. Thank God he got into all kind of hang-ups. He had all kind of disappointments. He failed the Lord all kind of times. But when the history is written and we look back over history, we can say, oh, yes, thank God. You were the right man, Peter. Thank God. Yeah, you failed and now you denied him. But when it's all said and done and the master got through with you, and some of you today, I want you to know God's not through with you. You may have messed up. You may have missed the mark. You may feel like that I'm not worthy. Thank God. But I'm telling you, the Lord's not through with you yet. He's still working on you. And once Jesus sealed the deal, thank God, it was no getting out of it. Thank God, Peter, you're my man. And even after the failures, thank God, God still said, thank God, you got an appointment on Pentecost Sunday to be the first preacher of this New Testament message. And so today, thank God, really, thank God, there is no telling what God will do. Tonight, it's no telling what God is going to do. If we'll just show up and we'll just expect God to do some great things, he's going to do great things. Thank God. Like the good shepherd, thank God, he seeks until he finds. Thank God. God keeps showing up. And sometimes, some of you don't realize that every time God shows up in your life, he's wanting to do something good for you. He's not coming to condemn you. He's not coming to tell you how bad you are. He's coming to tell you that there is hope. There is a way out. There's an answer for your problem. There's a way through the situation. And God, the truth is God sees in you what you don't see in yourself. If you only understood what God could do with your life if you would just surrender to him. God seeks a life that can be so wrong, and he can make it so right. God sees a vessel that can be used in some mighty way. Your life can really make a difference. You really can change situations that you never dreamed you could change. And what God is looking for is people that are hungry, that believe there's got to be more. There's got to be more purpose. There's got to be a greater thing. God is looking for dreamers. God is looking for vision seekers. Moses was 80 years old. That didn't matter. David was just a shepherd boy. That didn't matter. Thank God. The key was they said, God is calling, and so whatever you want to do, they just answered the call. God is looking for people that will make room for a miracle, because God is in the miracle working business. And so whatever dream, whatever ambition that God has put in you, he wants it to be a miracle. He doesn't want it to be because you can do it. He wants it to be because with him you can do it. That's willing to say, here, my Lord, use me. God has done it before, and I know he can do it again. And there is so much more that God can do with the most unlikely. God just has a way of showing up. And it was that way that day that Jesus said, I've got an appointment in Samaria. I got to be at a well at a certain time. And so him and his disciples made their way to Samaria. And the most unlikely person shows up for this appointment. The person that you would never think has even a clue what's going on this day shows up at that well. It was a woman that was a streetwalker. It was a woman that had been married 5 times. It was a woman that was living with a man at the very time that she met Jesus. And Jesus said, thank God, you're the right one. Thank God. And as she began to realize who she was talking to, and suddenly he reveals all of her iniquities and sins, she just knows that I'm in the presence of somebody that I don't need to be in the presence of. But when Jesus offered her some living water, suddenly something began to happen to her. Thank God, something began to wake up in her that, hey, there is hope even for me. Thank God. So while we're standing today, I don't know what lies the devil's been telling you. I don't know what the devil's been saying to you about your impossibilities, and why you can't have what all these people have, and why that you can't enjoy the presence of God like you see people around you enjoying the presence of God. You need to just do what that woman did that day. Thank God. When Jesus said, hey, there is a well, the woman said unto him, Sir, give me this water, that I thirst not, neither come hither to drink. And before that woman left that day, Jesus had so transformed her life that she was able to walk back into the city and say, hey, thank God, I want you to come see a man, thank God, that told me everything. And with the one lady's ability, he reached a whole city because he changed her life. Some of you don't realize that God He's not just reaching for you because he just wants to save you. He's reaching for you because the potential that you have for his kingdom is so great that he just knows that if you would surrender to me, it is no telling what God will do in your life, because it only takes a moment in his presence to change your life. Thank God. One touch of his hand, thank God, and you will never be the same. One touch of his hand and demons have to flee. One touch of his hands and your sins are forgiven. One touch of his hand and things are broken. Addictions are broken. Whatever it is that has you bound, it only takes his hand. Thank God. It only takes a touch of his hand to heal a sick body. One touch of the master's hand can do it all. Thank God. And that's what we can do for someone here today. Right now, God showed up. It's right now time. It's this day. God wants to do a miracle in your life. Don't look at all the reasons that it's not a good time, because the devil will always tell you all the reasons that it's not a good day to start. But I'm telling you, today is the day you need to start. Today is the day you need to say, not my will, but thine be done. God, I don't know what you see in me, but I feel your spirit drawing me. And so here I come. Thank God, ready or not, I'm coming for whatever you have for me. So while we take a moment, if you feel something drawing you, that God's trying to call you, trying to use you, trying to put you into a place of faith instead of fear, put you into a place of victory instead of doubt, put you in a place where that you're an overcomer and not being defeated by all the cares of life, why don't you just come today and claim that blessing, claim that promise. God, I'm claiming the promise today.